Protect your car with 3W Liners all-weather floor mats. Made from durable materials like TPE and rubber, our mats are designed to withstand rain, snow, and mud with deep grooves to trap dirt and liquids. For a custom fit and advanced protection, visit 3W Liners. That's the number 3, WLINERS.com today.
Marriott's on the move.
What?
Marriott's on the move.
Again?
Marriott's on the move. Woo-hoo!
If you are dreaming about moving to a new city to pursue the life of your dreams, this podcast is for you. Moving 18 times in 22 years to 5 of the top cities in America, I know it's not easy to make those decisions alone. So I help individuals develop the dream, the plan, and the move, even if we need to get scrappy to get you there. I'll be doing interviews, career and city spotlights, and sharing my crazy moving stories, tips, tricks, and scams to avoid. My Fred framework will help you see just how attainable your dreams are. Now let's get moving. Hi, everyone. In the Fred framework, R stands for robustness. And when I was putting together the framework, I couldn't decide which one was more important, your physical or your mental strength. So I kind of roped them together because they are both equally important and equally impactful depending on what you're going through and I guess growing through. But the more I coach and I guess just live through some of the things I've experienced in my life and been experiencing this last year in particular, I'm really glad I grouped both mental and physical strength together. And hopefully after today, you'll kind of see what I mean. I assure you, when I formed the framework, I did not anticipate talking about a situation that I was going and growing through, but here I am, putting it all out there in hopes that if you don't identify with it now, you might in the future, and that awareness might help you give yourself a little grace through whatever you're going through. That being said, today is part 2 of Robustness is Hard. So hard sometimes. And I chose the word robustness because, for one, when you Google robustness, you get 2 definitions. One is the quality or condition of being strong and in good condition. The second is the ability to withstand or overcome adverse conditions or rigorous testing. And I feel like those 2 definitions are conflicting, but in the weirdest way, somewhat complementary until you go through that whole, like, if it rains, it pours cliche in real life. But when you move, both your mental and physical strength are indeed tested over and over and over. But I'm not just a moving coach, I'm also a life coach. And if there's one thing that I've learned from all of these moves, meeting people from across the country with the same exact issues and symptoms and confusion when they feel like their body is failing them, is what I would consider us not being alone in any or really all of the things that we think are just unique to us. And I can say that with 100% certainty. There are very few people that are the first in the world to have something like a disease or a situation. And for that, I am grateful. It is called the human experience, and we're all living it, all humans. And living is an action verb. And most of the time, the anticipation of having to do that action is really scary. But mental and physical strength together are gifts that not people in this world are born with together, both of them. In fact, many people that seem to have both put a ton of work and effort into keeping both of them strong on the daily. And there are a lot of people that don't feel strong enough to put in that type of work, especially right now when we're in this state of languish as a society. And I kept hearing that word, so I looked it up, and Britannica says, languish means to continue for a long time without activity or progress in an unpleasant or unwanted situation. And since I've heard this word tossed around a lot during, and I guess in the wake of the pandemic, by psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists and posts and on podcasts, in basic terms, what it means is that right now, most people are surviving, not thriving. And if you can relate to that, you might be one of those people that feels like you're made for so much more. But right now, it's just really hard to get out of this program that keeps looping in your head over and over and over again. And I get it. I totally get it. I've been putting off doing this episode for a little over 2.5 months because I am still processing how I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it. And it's irrational how long and hard I thought about how or if I was even going to talk about getting one of my front teeth removed on this podcast. And it feels silly saying it out loud because you never know what people are going through. I mean, my feelings ranged from the woe is me, I'm reliving the childhood trauma of having a jacked up grill, to stop being vain, it's a tooth, get over yourself. And 2.5 months and 2 flippers later, well, actually, I'm waiting on the third because I dropped the first one and broke it. The fake tooth that sits on a retainer just literally popped off. And the second one that they ordered was totally different for $500. And it hurt like hell. So they're remaking the first version. It's just like a crazy story. But the long and the short of it is I'm not really sure where I fall still. And I don't want to do this for attention because the last thing I want is anyone looking at my mouth right now. But I also think that it's ridiculous that I feel as embarrassed and ashamed as I do because I'm putting the work in to fix this, to protect the rest of my teeth, despite it costing thousands of dollars that I never thought I'd have to spend because I assume this is the type of condition that's covered by insurance, which it's not. It is considered cosmetic, believe it or not, despite the numerous articles by multiple outlets that if you lose one tooth, you could be creating another situation in your oral health journey that could have implications down the road as well. It's crazy and unfair, and I have a lot of thoughts around this and the whole insurance industry as a whole, but I digress. To back up a little bit, I went to school for public relations, and we're trained to look at the facts of both sides before making a decision as to where you fall opinion-wise. And I was also a broadcast journalism major as well, and that training has also served me well. The fact is that people lose teeth all the time. I did not actually know this. People lose teeth all the time. In your 20s, in your 30s, and in your 40s. And I didn't think I was the only one because I know a couple people who went through this in the last few years, for sure. But I didn't really think it was as common as it apparently is, and nobody is talking about it. And it can stem from a million different things, from having an autoimmune disease, which is caused and triggered by inflammation in your body, to not having enough saliva, which creates other issues like decay. And I'm not even talking about people that get teeth knocked out, which also happens a lot. I mean, the more I talk about it, the more crazy stories I hear, and people show me crazy pictures of their teeth that were either knocked out or had to be extracted just like mine. And I really couldn't even talk about my situation when it started happening a few months ago without crying. And I don't consider myself a big crier. I'm pretty logical and, again, trained to see both sides. So when I got this information from my periodontist, I came home and Googled it. And I went down a complete rat hole with, just everything from articles about losing all your teeth after 65, which I'm not sure why that's the magic number, but it went even further and I was completely blown away. And then I just kind of felt like I had to share this with you. So in a 2020 blog by the Aesthetic and Implant Dentistry of Atlanta, they say, according to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, which is the CDC, by age 50, most Americans have lost an average of 12 teeth. The full adult dentition consists of 32 teeth. That means by age 50, you can expect to have 37 fewer teeth. Granted, 4 of those wisdom teeth are typically extracted in their late teens or early 20s. But even if you did not have your wisdom teeth pulled, you would still lose about 25% of your teeth by your 50th birthday. 25% of your teeth! That just sounds insane to me, and we are not talking about it. They went on in the article to say that the CDC also reports that 7% of Americans have lost at least one permanent tooth to decay by the time they reach their 17th birthday. The older you get, the worse the statistics become. The number increases to 69% when you get to the age group of 35 to 44. And keep in mind, this is about tooth loss due to decay. So by your 44th birthday, you may be walking around with at least one gap in your mouth due to a badly decayed tooth that needed extraction. And it gets worse. Over a quarter of the American population between the ages of 65 to 74 have lost all their teeth. Some of these teeth are extracted due to decay, and others either fall out or must be pulled out because of periodontal disease. Among older adults, periodontal disease is one of the main causes of tooth loss. Now, what is periodontal disease, you might be asking? And that is a whole other rat hole that I went down. And it reminds me of a cliche from when I was growing up that said, you only have to take care of the teeth you want to keep. But as a kid, you really don't take it very seriously because you're just going through the motions that your parents make you do. And as an adult, I feel like we've gotten bamboozled in a little bait and switch from the dentist and the toothpaste commercials that have all said that all you have to do is floss, brush, and rinse with something that could take paint off a wall and your teeth will be fine. And actually, most of them don't even say to floss. They just say, use my toothpaste because it's amazing and it's going to save all your problems in the future, which is a crazy lie that we've all been sold. And that if you have something wrong with your gums through genetics, your teeth, which having soft teeth prone to cavities is normal, or to bones that hold them all together, your jawbone, that it's your fault for not flossing enough or brushing enough or drinking enough milk to keep your bones from deteriorating. And I feel like we're feeling ashamed for things that you and I might not have been fully educated on. And I want to normalize that human experience because not getting educated enough on this is really kind of not our fault. I mean, I guess it is a little for not looking for the education. But if we were talking about some of these like statistics more, which I don't have my flipper in right now, so that's what happens. Like my tongue goes through my tooth hole. It makes me say words weird, which is why I'm ordering a third flipper because I hate that feeling. And I look weird. Well, I guess perception is reality in my head right now. But anyway, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC again, recently did a study to basically regarding those who suffer gum disease. And the study confirmed that almost 50% of adults in the US who are over the age of 30 have the advanced form of periodontal disease or gum disease. The CDC's analysis also showed that 47.2% of Americans, to do the math, you guys, that's 64.7 million people, have gum disease that could be characterized as mild, moderate, or severe. And in adults who are 65 or older, the rate of gum disease rises to 70.1%. Holy shit. Now, I'm one that gets a cleaning 2 times a year like you're supposed to. I have insurance. I fully take advantage of the fact that I have to pay for it out of my paycheck every 2 weeks. So I'm going to take advantage of those cleanings every single year. It was hard in the pandemic. But I remember in college being told that I had bad breath from a boyfriend, and I was completely mortified. And I still remember it very, very, very vividly because I was like, today or just like always? Like, and I didn't know that within the decade, I guess, I would be diagnosed with both Crohn's and celiac disease. And those 2 specific conditions limit digestion. And providing more undigested food for sulfur-reducing bacteria, it doesn't break it down, which generates more hydrogen sulfide, which is what causes, or one of the causes of bad breath. But that can also happen for anyone who's gluten sensitive. And I did a little research on that. So according to Dr. Fasano, the director of University of Maryland Center for Celiac Research, he published the first study looking at the molecular basis for gluten sensitivity and how it differs from celiac disease. And I mean, gluten sensitivity potentially affects far more people than celiac disease. And he estimates about 67% of the US population may be gluten sensitive, which, to do those numbers, that's about 20 million people in the United States alone could have a gluten sensitivity. So, like I said, you can go down a ton of different rat holes, but I can get back on track here because I want to talk about how when we feel ashamed about something, you really test your mental strength and you are putting it very much at risk. So I want to talk about physically how you can heal your body through different things that I've learned over the years trying to heal my own body. And really how as humans, we have to do things like this over and over and over again. Because I don't know about you, but I quickly forget why I was on a mission to like have freedom from pills and meds. And I've had to do this over and over again, but we're doing what we're doing until something jumps back into your psyche, like a cavity or, in my case, an extraction to remind us. But I'd also like to talk about robustness in general so we can be kinder about the human experience as a society. I mean, I know this is much bigger than me and you and our minute little problems, but it's a real mind-numbing experience, to put it nicely. that can really put us overthinkers on overdrive, just like it has to me. A great example would be Princess Glitterhead. Yes, her name is Princess Glitterhead from the TikTok. Her real name is Alicia, but she went viral in one of her early videos because she basically went from looking like a total meth head to a bombshell in about 30 seconds. And part of why her transformation was so dramatic, I mean, she's a brilliant makeup artist, but also was because she had no teeth until she put them in. And it's really freaky when you see someone with no teeth, and it probably shouldn't look that different when your mouth is closed, but it does for whatever reason. And I probably watched that video like 30 times and sent it to a bunch of people. So I'm basically part of the reason it probably went viral, because clearly I wasn't the only one that thought it was an amazing transformation. But what's crazy is that people were treating her like she was a drug addict for having teeth that fell out and like it was her fault. And I'm going to read you a little story called A Western New York Fairy Tale by Annette Pinder. And I'll link it in the show notes because it's good. But a little excerpt. Known to her internet followers as Princess Glitterhead, Alicia recently shared how her life changed after receiving help from Dr. Shatkin. In recounting her story, Alicia explains that she began having major problems with her teeth while pregnant with her first child. She was very young, just married, only 21 years old, and had no idea that pregnancy could cause vitamin deficiencies that affect her bones and her teeth. Although she underwent general dental care, her problems continued. Rather than the joy that typically accompanies a new marriage and the birth of a first child, Alicia was losing her teeth and had no idea what to do. By the time she had her fourth child, Alicia had lost all of her teeth and was experiencing overwhelming anxiety, heart palpitations, deepening depression, lack of confidence, and feared her marriage would not survive. You guys, this is all because of her teeth. The poor girl was going through hell, and people were making fun of her instead of helping her investigate why this was happening and how she could stop it, or at least prolong the life of the teeth that she had left. And I'm still shaking my head over this one because, I mean, it definitely fueled me on my journey to be proactive so that whatever she was dealing with didn't happen to me, which, by the way, 92% of the population is suffering from at least one mineral or vitamin deficiency based on the dietary reference intakes. So if you think this couldn't happen to you, my friend, you might be more at risk than you think. I have some exciting news for you. Did you know that my coaching doors are now open? Yes, friends, once again, I'm doing one-on-one coaching. And it's not just about moving. While that is my specialty, giving you a roadmap to use when deciding to move, or strategically aligning your goals to your dreams and moving you through the potential obstacles per se. But technically, I'm a life coach that deals with the whole human experience. A life coach is a type of wellness professional who helps people make progress in their lives in order to attain greater fulfillment and joy. Doesn't that just sound lovely? You know that pattern of habits you have that are even more annoying to you than they are to your friends and family? I'll help you verbally process those so you can get off that merry-go-round that doesn't feel so merry. Feel like you're constantly sliding down a metal slide on a hot day in shorts? I'll give you the tools to make better decisions. Jump on my website, marriottsonthemove.com, get on my Monday mailer, and I'll start giving you some of my tips and tricks. If you're ready to book a strategy session, just click on the coaching tab and we'll start moving forward together. Now, back to the show. Welcome back. So, this is where I start part 2 of my story. If you haven't listened to part 1 of Robustness is Hard, aka the Tooth Saga, please go back and listen to that now because it will fill you in on the day I was getting tooth number 10 removed, my lateral incisor on the upper left side, which is still a very surreal situation. But essentially, when I was growing up, I had a tooth that was in my gum, and I had an orthodontist that brought that tooth down as part of my greater smile. The impact of that was twofold. The tooth was misshapen, so it looked funny, like I had a little peg. And there was really nothing I could do because instead of removing it, they brought it down into the rest of my teeth. And my dentist now told me that a lot of people are not born with incisors, and braces take basically your eye teeth and pull it in so you don't have gaps there. But for me, I had one dentist that was kind of innovative and doing newer things like veneers, and we were able to basically put a cap on that tooth. So by my senior year, I looked less like a vampire and more like what I perceived to be a normal human being. At least that's what they look like in Teen Vogue or Teen Beat, which was what I was, or Tiger Beat. I think there were a lot of beats back then. But it did give me a better smile, which gave me a little bit more confidence. And as a cheerleader in high school and college, it really let my energy show right on my face, which I loved, loved big smiles. I mean, he lifted my gums so my teeth looked bigger and better, which I still appreciate him for that. But since then, I had literally every single dentist that I've ever gone to in the 5 different states I've lived in tell me that the root was very short, which I knew. And if the bone started to deteriorate, that it could mean getting that tooth removed, grafting the bone and putting a post in so we could crown the tooth. And in theory, I wouldn't have to worry about again. And this is something I assumed was going to happen in my 60s and 70s when most people lose their teeth, as we talked about a bit earlier. But that day had basically arrived, and no matter how much I put it off, the tooth had become pretty mobile, as my doctor said it. It was loose, it was loose. And I wasn't eating solid foods around it. I ate in the back of my mouth. I mean, it was a lot. And I mentioned going through a range of emotions that was compounded with other things that I felt like were going on in my life. And it kind of felt like I was being silenced, which sounds crazy even to say it out loud. But that this big thing that I wanted to do, meaning this podcast, was yet another sign that maybe I shouldn't be doing it. And I wasn't meant to coach people on a grander scale, which is a crazy way to think and a story that I was telling myself. And inherently, I know that's completely irrational, but I still felt that way. And those feelings are and were really real. And even though I, was doing this because it was the right thing to do, it could save the other teeth that are on the bone, because trust me, I did a ton of that research too. Mentally, it was just blowing my mind. I mean, I was telling myself all these crazy stories and was getting validated by the things that was happening, that the fears and insecurities and the judgment that I was going to feel, putting myself out in the public, doing a podcast, they were going to come flying back to me like waves crashing violently against a breaker wall. And there was really nothing I could do about it. But what I didn't anticipate, and I'm still in disbelief that I felt this way, and it was instant. I felt relief. Like the minute it was pulled out of my body, which he barely touched it, and said that I was very, very, very lucky that it didn't just fall out one day when I was talking. That's how loose it was. And I mean, he barely touched it. It fell out because I was not going to touch it. I wasn't going anywhere near it. But I felt relief. Like my anticipation of what I was going to feel was worse than what I actually felt. Someone sent me a quote by Mark Twain that said, "I've experienced many troubles in my life, most of which never happened." And oh my gosh, is that so true? Many, many, many years ago, I heard that the anticipation is always worse than the actual event. And I've actually quoted this over and over with different people that have different fears that I've helped coach through the years. And the shock that I felt when it was relief was somewhat disorienting, was probably the best word to describe it. I mean, at first I thought it was maybe the adrenaline rush from the numbing meds that they shot me up with, because they did give me a ton. But I swear to the Lord above, the minute the periodontist was wiggling the tooth and it literally just came out, I felt instant relief. I mean, it was quickly stopped by the doctor and the nurse that were assisting him, because both went with their hands barely out of my mouth. And I was like, "Whoa," because I couldn't talk because their hands were in my mouth. But as best I could, the nurse said that there was a huge cyst on the root of the tooth pushing it out. And you guys, I didn't even know that was a thing. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that's why the tooth was mobile, because that doesn't, I guess it might show up on a x-ray, but it didn't. And what I do know is that I typically had a lot of plaque, and I don't know, I guess the bone deteriorating over the last 3 years and the pandemic, only getting one x-ray with my cleanings a year, because really the dentists weren't taking us in the pandemic those first 2 years. I fought kicking and screaming to get a cleaning each time. And it was such a weird experience, dentists in hazmat suits and stuff. It's really crazy. But knowing that I did typically have a lot of plaque, I still went each year because it happens fast. And I literally said a prayer thanking God, because when we were wrapping up the procedure, I asked the nurse, what could have happened if I didn't come in when I did? And outside of the tooth just falling out, to my horror, she was like, "Well, one, again, it just could fall out because he barely touched it and came out, which I was kind of mad a little bit that I didn't pull a Kourtney Kardashian and pull it out myself. Like, I don't know if you've seen that video. I was like on news outlets even, but she basically, when she had her baby, I don't even know which one because she's got a ton of babies, but she like leaned over and pulled the baby out herself. Like if you Google Kourtney Kardashian, I can't say that word with my tooth out, pulling her baby out, you'll see a visual. And like what she said next was that if I didn't get it done when I did, that cyst could have attached to the other roots of the other front teeth and pushed them all out as well. I would say shock and horror are really the only two emotions that I can describe feeling after relief. That the dust settled on relief, and then I Googled dental cyst and learned all about how common it is. But again, no one really talks about this because it's somewhat shameful. Even though your body is basically saying, I'm done with this, I don't need it anymore, I'm going to go ahead and push it out, which is healthy. It's literally getting something dead out of your mouth. That's what's supposed to happen. But it goes back to all that shame of being your fault, of not properly taking care of your teeth. But if we're not educated early on why we should be taking care of them and what can happen outside of crazy commercials or PSAs that you learned when you were a child, I really think more people would do a lot more to save their teeth. And I asked Dr. Google once again how many people don't floss regularly. And there was a lot of hype about that last year for some reason. I don't know if it was just like people coming out of the pandemic were like, oh, well, I wasn't doing anything for my hygiene or what. But it basically said that half of Americans don't floss regularly and 20% of them don't floss at all, which was actually even more shocking than anything. But I definitely went from only flossing a few times a week over the years to doing it almost every single night with oil pulling, which my brother had mentioned to me. I think I talked about it in the first part of this, but my brother had mentioned to me because this all started because my gum had gotten really, really inflamed. And I felt like maybe I hit a nerve or something when I was flossing, because again, I was making it my fault. Like I was actually flossing and I was like, oh, my gum's getting redder. That's weird. But he said that Ayurvedic practices talk about how oil pulling reduces inflammation through removing bacteria. And there are two types of oils that I now go between. One is organic sesame oil. I literally have a gallon of it in my bathroom on the counter. And I put like these little like shot glasses next to it so I can use it. But I put about a tablespoon of it in my mouth before I get in the shower. And I just swish the whole time I'm in there. It's after about 15 minutes. So 15, 20 minutes, I will spit it out, rinse out my mouth very, very thoroughly twice. I floss and then I brush with an electric toothbrush. And then I rinse with, it's like the generic version of the zero alcohol Listerine type rinse. But at night, before I go to bed, I do an organic, non-refined coconut oil pull while I'm winding down. And I do the same thing. I put it in for 20 minutes. I spit, rinse twice, really, really well, floss, brush, and then rinse with the Listerine stuff. But if I hadn't seen it pull the inflammation out of my gums literally overnight, you guys, I would not have believed it myself. And I'm really, really, really kicking myself for not taking a picture of it. But I didn't think it was going to be that impactful. I mean, it went from right above the tooth, just being bright, bright red, to like growing to the teeth next to it. And I was like, oh. So I asked my brother, he told me about the oil pulling. I got the sesame oil out of the cabinet. I did that. And in the morning, I did the coconut oil because I didn't know which one I was going to like better. And I figured I would just like pick one, but now I'm using both. But it literally overnight, when I was walking by the mirror after that, I looked and there was a tiny, tiny ring of red just right directly around the tooth. All of the other inflammation went away. It was mind-blowing. And I significantly think that like we need to start looking into Eastern medicine more than Western medicine, because if it was that impactful and it was one thing, I can only imagine how some of the other practices are. So I started a whole entire regimen around rebuilding this bone. It's healing every day. I've started meditating and I learned all about Joe Dispenza. So if you don't know who he is, he basically healed himself and his bones after a terrible bike accident that left him in a wheelchair. And he talked about like the mind over matter. And I've been literally meditating every single day that the bone that got grafted has been healing the way it's supposed to. So it's because it has to, the process is basically they remove the tooth, they graft the bone, and then we wait 3 months for the bone to heal. And it's got to get hard enough after 3 months to put a post in. And then they kind of sew back your gums up again. And then that post needs the cells from the bone to kind of heal around it to hold it in place. And then after another 3 months or so, then they can put the crown and the permanent tooth on that will be there for the rest of my days, hopefully. But in meditating every day, I picture the bone just healing and getting harder and taking that post in and healing around that, just the way it's supposed to do. So that whole process is going to be at the beginning of April, kind of right around basically the week that this is going live. And I'm almost exactly halfway through this journey and the process that I'm on. And I'm going to get that post put in and my tooth is going to be ready. But the cells have to do their job and regenerate the bone, which is amazing. Like our bodies really do know how to heal. And I mean, the best example I can give is like when you cut your finger or you get a cut on your leg or something, your body heals itself. Like you might put a Band-Aid on it, or you're not supposed to put Neosporin. I learned that the hard way when I've had a lot of body. I basically took off the top of my toe on my second toe on my right foot last year because I dropped my laptop and I tried to save it from hitting the floor with my foot, and it just chopped kind of the top of off. Sorry, not to gross you out. I know that's really, really visual and graphic and disgusting. But the dermatologist that I went to that next day basically said you're supposed to put something like Aquaphor and then put a Band-Aid on it so air doesn't get into it and it heals faster. And I'm not even kidding you. Within 3 months, the entire top of my toe grew back along with the nail and everything. It was crazy to watch. But there is this movie that they put out on Prime Video. And I just kept feeling like I saw it in an Instagram post, like the top 10 videos out that you should definitely watch when you're trying to heal your body. And it's a documentary called Healed on Prime Video, or Heal, I think it is. It's a picture of like a flower on the front of the cover. It's like a blue cover. But I identified with so many things in that movie. If you get a chance to watch it, I highly recommend it. But it's the journey that I have embarked on. And I didn't even realize that I was kind of going on it. But in the movie, Anita Morjani, who was talking, the segment was about cancer. And she had talked about how she had had little tumors all over her body. And she said, I turned the word remission into remember my mission. Tell yourself, I'm done with cancer. And now it's time for me to remember my mission. And it dawned on me back when I was hospitalized for Crohn's and had already been dealing with my inner rebel wanting to eat whatever I wanted, even though I was in the throes of celiac responses. This is when I had the experience with the doctor about taking my meds that were making me sicker and losing all my hair. And he basically told me he did tell me to put my big girl skirt on and take my pills. It still fires me up. I get so mad. But I thought, oh my gosh, I let my mission, which at the time was food is medicine, of figuring out what was all causing my issues with the meds and learning all about foods and how eating a diet that doesn't include inflammatory foods can heal your gut. And when you heal your gut, you can also heal things like depression and anxiety. And while there are still very severe cases that require meds and hospitalization, don't get me wrong, I'm not a doctor, but Dr. Mark Hyman, who has built his life around healing through food, like he does talk about that. And he just released a book called Young Forever. I have a book that he wrote called The Pagan Diet, which is basically vegan, and paleo. Just basically like eat clean foods with a lot of vegetables and you'll heal your body. But yesterday I spent the whole day cooking and cleaning up, and that became my journey. Like I started back and I watched the movie and it just validated that my body needs what it needs. And I hadn't been listening. And it helped me kind of remember my mission. And even funnier, as I'm writing this, I was listening to Your Move with Andy Staley. It's like a Christian segment that they do once a week, almost like they're recording their church or something. But in the background, they started playing the song Reckless Love. And that was originally done by Corey Asbury. It's a really, really good song. But the first time I heard the song was in church. It was back in 2017 or 2018. And it instantly brought tears to my eyes. And while I feel that love from God, Scott McIntyre, who, I don't know if you watched American Idol, but he was the blind guy in American Idol. A lot of people know him. He was talking before he played that song about being blind and reflected on crossing the street when you're blind. And he's like, you don't know what's going to be over there, and you just have to have faith that you will adapt and figure it out, which is an amazing analogy that I had never thought about. And he brought his wife into the conversation, and she was talking about how in the Bible, Isaiah 41:10 in particular, it talks about putting your trust in your faith. And depending on which version of the Bible you read, I tend to like the English Standard Version or the King James Version, but it says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand," which there are many implications, both theoretical and practical, about the right hand being traditionally like a place of honor and status through biblical text. But what it reminded me of is like, God made our bodies, and he knows how to heal us, and he knows how to strengthen us. And well, I'm not going to get into my religious beliefs in this episode because now, as usual, I'm going off on a tangent. I do know that every human on this planet is a walking miracle, and that we need to strut accordingly, which to me means doing everything in your power to be living in a way that brings you confidence in your choices, that you, my friend, are your own CEO of your body. And if you wouldn't work for a company run by you right now because you're a spicy disaster, then maybe start doing your own experiments with things like food and meditation and taking your power back, because we all have the power to do that through our actions. Remember, living is an action verb. So, on that note, I'm moving forward in my own healing process through talking about what is happening to me, learning from other people with their stories, moving away from the shame of my actions in the past, because up until now, I knew what I knew, and now I am in charge and being free to change how I'm living in this vessel of mine. I hope you stick around and follow my journey, and it inspires you to start your own so we can keep moving forward together towards your biggest dreams. On that note, friends, thanks for listening. I'm pretty obsessed with Savvy. I think I have almost every sports bra they make because, let's face it, they keep the girls high and tight just like their leggings. And I love them because I am always moving, and I don't mean relocating this time. I'm either working out, grabbing brunch, going on a date with Nick, going to work, or a work event. And even if I'm just lounging around the house, I can wear Savvy for all of them. I have 4 of their dusters and all of their dresses. To prove how great they are, they released a hot pink trucker hat. And guess what it says? Moving forward together. It's like it was made for us. You can check it out on my faves page at marriottsonthemove.com. Don't forget to drop me your email address. I may be giving one of those trucker hats away in a month or 2, and you'll only find out when through my Monday mailer. Now, back to the show. Well, I could go on forever and ever about moving you closer to your dreams, but I probably should save some thoughts for the next episode. A big thanks goes out to you for making time for me today. In making time for me, you are making time for future you, and we are both grateful. Get on my Monday mailer by registering on my website at marriottsonthemove.com, where you can find my blog, all my faves, which, if you didn't know, by buying yourself something real nice, you are actually supporting the show. It's the gift that keeps on giving, Clark. Be sure to sign up for my mailing list, where I put a few nuggets each week that you can't get on the podcast. Thank you to the team at Bear Value for editing genius. Thank you to my brother and my therapist who keep me balanced. And thank you to my assistant Jacinta, whose Canva prowess makes me look like I know what I'm doing. And to Nick, my favorite boyfriend ever. Oh, my love. Until next time, keep moving forward towards your dreams. Bye for now.
Marriott's on the move. What? Marriott's on the move. Again? Marriott's on the move.